I had literally like a $800 suit from my days at Wall Street. It was like legit like Hugo Boss suit. And Ebus is there drinking. We were all, we had smoked outside in front of the club. Came back in. He goes, I wanna ask you something. He goes, I've met a lot of hustlers that remind me of you, and basically called me out. Like he asked me. He's like, are you a drug dealer? Like, are you a coke dealer? Like, you hustle? Like this and that? And I said, Ebus, I don't even know what to say to that. Like, I'm not.
Let's fight.
In light of the recent closings, this conversation was long overdue. My name's Ash. Welcome to Let's Fight. Since being legalized in 2021, weed is everywhere in New York City. Between the fancy legal dispensaries, various Zaza convenience shops, and phantom QR code delivery stickers, weed's become very accessible. However, like everything else in New York City, hard to tell friend from foe. I had an opportunity to meet up with my old PNC Radio boss, Alex Norman, who now heads Budega.NYC, a cannabis lifestyle brand and online dispensary. We tried our best not to boomer it up with war stories of smoking nickel bags in the 90s and clear through some of the smoke and mirrors of cannabis culture in New York City. Welcome to Let's Fight. In this corner, out of Brooklyn, New York, Alex Norman. How do you pronounce it? Is it Budega or Budega?
Budega.
Budega?
Like bud, like weed, bud,
That's unfortunate. I've been calling it Budega the entire time.
It's funny, when I was in Colombia, I went to Colombia in December for this, they had a Cannabis Cup event in Colombia. And I always wanted to go to Colombia. It was like one of my bucket lists.
One of mine too.
Yeah, because my son's godfather is from Colombia, and I grew up in Queens, so like half my friends are Colombian. So it was always like talking to family. Everyone that's from their country, they always love their country. They always talk about. But I used to always hear Colombia, and you live in Queens, it's just everything's Colombian. You remember Caven? Caven, he used to go out with Rebecca, used to do the Lunchbox soundtrack. No. There's like DJ She-Rock used to like
Must have been after me.
No, you were there. I just probably the timing, because he used to do it at 12 o'clock. Anyway, he moved out there recently, and so, and he's a Brooklyn guy, Brooklyn, Queens guy. Just after COVID, one of those things where, everybody like broke out and stuff. Yeah. And anyway, he went to Colombia, and so he's like, bro, you gotta come out, I got you. And then obviously through Bodega and the website and the IG, I'm now all in the cannabis industry stuff. And I caught on to that Cannabis Cup in Colombia, in Medellin. It just so happens Caven's in Medellin. I was like, oh, and ducks are lining up. Yeah. Like, I'm gonna go to this event, start building a network in Colombia on some weed and then I got my boy Caven, and we'll go out, we'll chill. So I try to recruit people. A lot of guys couldn't make it. It was actually kind of like a birthday present to myself. I went to so when everybody was meeting me and recognizing the brand, they were all pronouncing it the same way in Spanish, Budega. But I'm like, it doesn't translate. Yeah. Because it's really like a play on the word bud. And everybody was calling it Budega because they're trying to put a Spanish accent to it.
I think that's what was happening.
Yeah, you're trying to. Everyone put a Spanish accent to it, and so I was like, it gets lost a little bit here. I can see that because the word bodega is we call it a bodega because we make it sound English, right? Because we make it not a silent O. It's a O. But in Spanish is bodega, so the O is almost silent. But we never really, English speaker, so it kind of worked in reverse. Spanish people then made it into Spanish, and it sounds like bodega. It doesn't translate into
I think bodega. When I tried to pronounce it as bodega, it was funny. Right. But then I was like, it's probably the other way. Yeah. But it's thanks for the clarification.
Yeah, it's on the play on the word is on bud, to illicit cannabis. So
have you had the grand opening yet, or?
No, I mean, I was doing my parties on the low, like private parties with other people in conjunction with I had done one with a couple of artists in private venues that came off really good. It was fun. And then I want to say the last party I did was last year in Williamsburg, which we had a fucking amazing turnout. But since then, now that I got my license, I can't do these parties. I gotta like lay low, like. You know, the people are smoking, and not that anybody really cares, and not that they're doing anything, but like I'm realizing in this business, on the legal side of it, there's a lot of little fucking snitches and shit talkers and haters, and so like you gotta be careful. Like, you just gotta shut up.
Yeah.
You can't get pulled into it. I gotta act like the brand. I can't be like in my feelings on the Bodega, IG page, because it's not my personal profile page. Where it's like, if I want to talk shit, I gotta be like, I don't talk politics on my Bodega Smush as much as I'm very political. I gotta reel that back in, because it can happen especially with the cannabis brands, and even the content, it gets blocked by Instagram.
Yes.
Like, they limit your views. They'll even like not post the post. They'll flag you, and if you get enough flags, they'll remove your page. So I gotta be careful. I can't get into it with people. I gotta be real coy. All right, you got it.
You get a lot of people coming at you on social media, though?
No, I don't, because I don't engage.
Got it.
Even if I have a disagreement, I always like, all right, we'll agree to just disagree, and I'll leave it at that. I don't, as much as I want to go at them, I got to realize I got to protect my brand.
I think people think the internet's like the real street, like they can just say whatever they want and there won't be any repercussions whatsoever.
Right. But in the thing about the industry, and why you saw my article in the New York Times early on, was because people, I have a trademark. I have 2 trademarks on that name for apparel and merchandise, and I have a New York State trademark. And right out the gate, people were already taking the name, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, and what's crazy is that Bodega wasn't even the first brand name that I had come up with to launch my brand. I don't even remember the first one, but I remember playing with the words and writing down names and stuff, and wordsmithing stuff to kind of come up I came up with PNC, and so when I had first tried to start a cannabis brand and blog, Bodega wasn't even my first choice, but the first thing I did was run it through the trademark search on the USPTO site. I was like, oh damn, somebody's using this name already, I can't do it. So I just went on to the next. I'm like, people just don't have no fucking integrity. Like, they're just gonna just steal your name and start rocking it out, knowing you got the trademark is there. It says it. Dude,
you've seen how many different versions of Zaza King are around?
I know, but that's not a real name. That's not.
What is that though?
So it's typical New York shit. It's just a wordplay that evolved into another word and then to another word. So it's like exotic, and then exotic became exa. So instead of just saying the whole word exotic, it's just like the wordplay of let me get the za. You see it, right?
Old.
But you see it, but you know it. But you see it. You grew up in New York. You're a New York guy. Once I explain it to you, you're like, aha. You have an aha moment. You're like, aha. That's what it is.
That's so stupid.
I should have known. You're like, I should have known. I'm from here. I know my people.
Those spots scare the out of me.
They're starting to get rated.
Dude, I've been seeing that. I bought a pre-roll. I had no idea what is it, Grabba?
Grabba, yeah.
I had no idea what that was.
It's tobacco.
And
there's a Grabba lounge up the block.
I know that now. I went into one of those Zaza places and bought a pre-roll. And here's how stupid I am, because I literally will look the dude in the face like, is this THC?
Yeah.
And they'll say, yeah. I was like, THC, not Delta, what's the other one? Delta 8?
Yeah.
Not CBD, this is THC. He's like, yeah, I take one pull. I'm like, the fuck is this? I just throw it to the side, like, yo, I feel like calling the cops on this place.
It's just trash. But the thing is, so going back to like my day, none of these guys ever hustled. Never broke weed down. They never bought weed from growers. They never got shit from Cali. They never bought weed from guys that grew in New York or whatever. So like, they don't know. They don't know. It's like, you know, it's like me starting a restaurant, just making burgers and shit. Like, I don't know, you're just making shit. Like, they don't know. They just, someone comes with a duffel bag. It's all prepackaged. It's like, I'm giving it to you, $10 wholesale. You mark it up to 30. I'll come back in 30 days or whatever you sold. Just pay me back the money. These Arab dudes, these Arabs don't even smoke. They're all Muslim.
Yeah.
So do you think they maybe hash? Maybe. But most of these Muslims, they don't drink either. What are they selling? They don't know what they're selling. They're not into that. To them, it's just like, oh, it's a nice package. I could sell it for $40. I'm paying $15, $20. That's a flip. Yeah. Why not? You know, it's that easy. It's not that deep. So they don't. It's not like they're gonna break open like me. I'm breaking the package open. I'm breaking it down. I'm smelling it. I'm looking at it. I'm gonna smoke it. I'm gonna get all my potheads, friends that are even bigger potheads than me, that are like connoisseurs, and be like, "Yo, smoke that. What do you think? Oh, this is nice. All right, well, I'm buying that." You know, like that kind of. They're not doing that. They just whatever. So that's, you know, that's kind of like what 80% of these stores are doing. You know, so it's made weed look so bad. It's like
it's and now like these kids are just like smoking it wherever the hell they are. And me, I'm just like, that was never me. I always made sure. I was like, I was either indoors or I was definitely someplace where no one could see me, like either in someone's backyard or just
on the deck of PNC.
No, on the deck of PNC.
PNC deck, yeah. But yeah, I mean, when I was like 19, we used to go. I used to my two weed spots were in Bushwick and East Harlem, like Spanish Harlem. Those are the two areas that I always went to go cop, because that's where all the spots were that I was always going to. So sometimes I would smoke like in between the train cars, you know, back then. Like if I wanted to, like, you know, because you jump on the train for like 2 hours, hour and a half, you know, to go all the way out to Bushwick, you know, if I'm in Queens, or if I was going to Spanish Harlem and I'm in Brooklyn and I wanted to go to my, you know, Spanish Harlem spot. So, you know, you go that whole
hour and a half on the train.
Yeah, you just want to and get the weed. The whole idea is like, now you want to smoke, but you know, you always had to be careful. But that was the only, like, if I was with like a friend or two, we'd go in the middle of the car, in between the cars, and light up, you know, between, you know, the stops. But that was it, you know, because still you get arrested, you know, or, you know, get a ticket or get taken in. It was always just a fucking headache. I mean, New York City, it is and was the fucking weed arrest capital of the world. So, you know, they I think they arrested like 1.5 million people for weed.
Damn.
In like a span of like 15 years. 1.5 million, that's like a major city. Like they basically...
Do you have any idea how many licenses they've
given out?
They've given out since like legalization.
So where's the tally at now? If you include myself in the first group of people that got licenses under the CART program for people that had a cannabis arrest, the number is, don't quote me, but it's slightly above 400. I think like 450.
That's it?
460, yeah. And then they issued another round of 250 licenses, but nobody, you know, so it's less than I think maybe 100 stores are open right now. So they're starting to open up faster, but we also had 2 lawsuits that basically, one lawsuit froze Brooklyn and 4 other counties. When that lawsuit was finally resolved, meanwhile the rest of the counties were able to start opening up, but those openings were slow. It takes time to find a location that meets the zoning regs. You gotta get money up to build out. Like, that shit takes time, and so you gotta get permits, and you know, everything has to be by the book. And so that was a slow ramp up, and then the second lawsuit hit in July, like maybe 2-3 weeks after I got my license, and then that froze everything for basically another 6 months, and the entire state, nobody could open. The only ones that were able to operate were the ones that were already operational.
Okay.
So that delayed it again. So all those delays created backups on the supply chain with all the farmers. A lot of farmers, put up a lot of capital to, basically set up their grows, which is, it's capital intensive. You got to buy lights and greenhouses and soil and hire people to, manage the farm and all that stuff. So, and then because of the delay, of the rollout with the retail stores, there was no outlet for them there weren't just not enough stores to take on all this product. So a lot of that stuff just sat around and got bad and got old.
Yeah.
And weed, unless you have like a perfect storing facility, like you need like a pitch black room, temperatured and humidity controlled at 60, you can preserve it for a long time, but most people don't build that out, because as soon as you harvest, that's supposed to be out the door. You dry, cure, that takes about 30 days, and then then once it's done,
get it out of there.
Get it out. I mean, I used to grow when I was at PNC. I had 2 spots. So in the mornings, I used to go to my grows and do it myself. And that, as soon as I harvested and cut down and cured, like 2 weeks later, half of it went into my delivery service, and then the other half I flipped it to a couple of guys that just, needed a pound here, a pound there. So, it went quick, but like it didn't sit around for 5 months. Because you basically start the cycle over as soon as you harvest. Especially when you do indoors, it's a every 2-month cycle. Okay. More or less, plants flower and harvest every 60 days. Obviously, you have some that harvest 55 days. You have some that harvest 65, 70 days. But more or less, it's 60 days. It's a 2-month flowering cycle. But then as soon as you take those plants out of their pots and hang them, the minute you take them out of the room into a room to dry and cure, you already have another set of plants coming in that are vegging, so you don't miss that beat. So every 2 months you have a harvest.
Constantly rolling. Yeah.
So it's not like you're gonna harvest and then wait 4 months, 5 months to get rid of whatever you have. You're trying to keep coming up because that's money. So that's what kind of happened in simple terms. I want to say that was probably like 80-90% of the problem, with the harvest. There were other things that happened that, people will point to, well, it was already expensive, and there was a potency tax, and that raised the price, and, we didn't do a cannabis grower showcase. We didn't do enough of those, like farmers markets, and everybody's Monday morning quarterback. It's easy to kind of like after the fact know the things that you should have done, but that was under unusual circumstances. When things are supposed to go a certain way, you count on that being the way to sell the products and whatnot. But then when the problems start to happen, then you don't realize till after the fact what you should have done in order to like hedge yourself against not being able to move the product, right? So it was just like the perfect storm of shit that happened to kind of really get us to like where we are now, where it's still the rollout has just been honestly like one of the worst rollouts of any state that's gone legal. But it's also, New Yorkers are the fucking noisiest people in the world. We fucking complain about the Knicks and Tom Thibodeau. We complain about the Yankees and Brian Cashman. And if they lose 3 games in a row, we gotta fire Cashman and bring somebody else. We complain about the Rangers. We complain about Dolan. We complain about the Giants. And, so... I'm
done complaining about the Giants.
But I'm just saying, like, New Yorkers are the biggest critics, so we also kind of over complain about everything because everyone has a fucking opinion. So that also adds to the whole issue. So that's the part that we're just complainers and critics. So that's also kind of adding a lot of extra fuel to the fire.
I think New York deserves legal weed.
Do we deserve? Yeah. Wow, that's a good question. Do we deserve? Well, we do because we're so accepting of it. I feel like it was long overdue, right? Why did all these other states become legal way before us when we were such a fucking pothead city? Like, who do you know that doesn't? Do you know more people that smoke weed that don't smoke weed?
I know more people that smoke weed now. Back in the day, it was really just like.
Well, that's also because we didn't. Yeah, we had to be quiet about it.
Yeah,
it's like awkward. But how often would you meet somebody like, oh, you smoke weed too? Like, your spotheads just naturally.
I'm meeting less people who don't. Right. You're right.
I growing up in Queens. Most of my friends, 70% of the people that I know, that I knew growing up, smoke weed.
Anyone I knew on Flatbush smoked weed.
It's Brooklyn.
Done and done,
Yeah, so, that was really, the scenario. So just based on that, that the city was long overdue for it. You know what I mean? Because people were tired of getting arrested too. I mean, it also disproportionately affected, communities of color. Black and Hispanics and men were 90% of the people that got arrested.
Yep.
So disproportionately by like a lot. Like 10, 12 times more than, the average white person who smoked just as much as we did, so we deserve it if not for that reason alone. Like, it affected a lot of people's lives. I mean, if you're Black or Hispanic and you have an arrest, doesn't matter what the fuck it is, it just sets you back 5 times. Yeah. Because they already think that you're a criminal or some degenerate or like borderline sus, like, is he violent? Yeah, he's an addict. Does he come, is he violent? Is he a hothead? Is he gonna like get mad at work and beat people up and threaten people, like anything? So like even just one negative is like the equivalent of like, 10 strikes to somebody that's white that might have, an arrest for driving without a fucking, suspended license or, a possession of a joint. Like, they're given the benefit of the doubt. If you're Black or Hispanic, you don't get the benefit of doubt already, and they're just looking for one little excuse to just not have to deal with you because all the other stereotypes are already built in, and they're looking for a reason not to, give you that chance. As much as it's a struggle to, you know what I mean? Because all the other things all the misconceptions and again the stereotypes that they have of us. So yeah, we deserved it because of the way it impacted people's daily lives. I'm sure I don't have to tell anybody. I mean, I'm fortunate that when I did get arrested, I was already like had a career in Wall Street. I was already kind of self-made, so it didn't necessarily affect me. But if it happened like how it happened to a lot of these kids at 19, 20, 21, just fresh out of high school, trying to figure out their first jobs, trying to break into, their careers, definitely set them back.
They were immediately handicapped
at whatever opportunities that maybe they were looking to pursue but weren't now there because now they had that record, on there. So it's just, you're looking at a stack of resumes, you're like, oh, he got it. No.
Yeah.
That's it, As hard as it is already to get a job, and the weeding out process is always
now the algorithm will find out whether or not you're viable for the job.
Exactly, but it was always, how do I get through this stack of resumes? And the easiest way to just not even read it was to see, this person has a record. No, easy no, so. But so yeah, to your question is we do actually, when you really think about it.
Because I was always more okay with decriminalization. Yeah. Versus legalization. Legalization, I automatically saw like corporations getting involved, and like I just immediately pictured Marlboro like weed. at a corner store or some shit.
It happens, but like there is a parallel to cannabis and like beer and wine, where there's a lot of craft business, cannabis opportunities, like craft beers. Yeah. Because how long did Budweiser and Miller and all these big name brand beers, dominate until they started the craft breweries, and now you have tons of really great craft local breweries now that have a niche. They're a small business, but they're highly profitable. They're influencers in their own little marketplaces. So like that's definitely going to be something that's going to I don't want to say prevail, but coexist with the big box retailers or brands, because again there's so, and I experienced myself when I was growing, and having experienced it with my own customers was I was growing a specific strain called Holy Grail, and I got to learn how to grow it really good. Like I want to say I borderline mastered it, and so every time I used to drop it into my delivery service, you actually probably smoked it at the studio.
Nice.
And so when I would put that shit in the service, I mean, I used to get a lot of good stuff from my connects back in the day, but nobody had that strain. And I mean, I knew it existed out west because I had researched it, and it was the first hybrid strain to have scored a perfect score in the Colorado Cannabis Cup back in, I want to say, I'm guessing here, maybe like 2010, 2011. So, and so I was looking for something to grow, and when I saw it, it was a perfect 50-50 hybrid. 50, it was right down the middle between hybrid and between indica and sativa, and in terms of its effects. And again, it had it was the first strain to ever win, to a perfect score at that cup for that category. So I was like, I gotta get this. This sounds good. It's easy to grow. It smelled, had all the qualities. I got the seeds, grew it out, going through a bunch of harvests. I was starting to master how I like to eat and everything. Every time I dropped that shit in the service, people would lose their minds. They're like, yo, that fucking Grail, they would just call back to back to back, and they're like, and within like 2 weeks, I'd have 4 pounds like sold out on the breakdown, not even QPs, on quarters, halves, ounces, like straight breakdown, eighths, straight breakdown. People would just, and then when it was gone, people were like, you don't have any more Grail? I was like, nah. They're like, when are you getting it back? In my head, I'm like, I don't know. It's gonna be like maybe 4 months. I don't know. My connect got it, and comes and goes. It's like a fucking cicada. Just fucking comes once every so often, every couple of years. So I just play stupid. But so in my head, that was my first experience. Like, like, I got sours, I got hazes, I got granddaddy. I get all these strains, G13s that I would have in my service, but like, I had something that nobody had that was really good, and that was my first like realization, like, this is something. This is like a drop, like it's like a sneaker drop or like a t-shirt drop of a certain artist, or you know what I mean, like. So I was like, this is like a business model, That was back then, realizing that, and I'm like, fast forward to now and understanding how the craft business works. I'm like, okay, I've experienced this. Obviously there's way more strains now, but there's still certain strains that are unique and original, that aren't commonplace, that you could kind of build that kind of following for. It takes time, but like that's how you have to, be smart about it, and try to make yourself stand out.
Is that what the Bodega's gonna have?
Well, so hopefully, because I can't grow, right? Because the 2-tier system in New York You have to either be tier 1, which is a cultivator, processor, and distributor, or tier 2, where it's just your retail. Retail means either you own a retail dispensary, or you have a consumption lounge, or you have a delivery service. So I can't cross that. But what I can do, because I'm retail and I'm basically, the outlet for the products, I can work with cultivators to say, hey, I need you to grow me this exclusive strain. I want to be the exclusive person to offer this to my customers. Can you do a small batch for me? And and obviously in return, they're going to be like, well, why am I going to do this? Well, because I'm going to market the out of it. I got a whole campaign behind it. We're going to do a t-shirt. We're going to package the strain drop with a dope, fresh new t-shirt design with a dope rolling tray and I don't know, fucking dope grinder, all done by like an artist, from New York or something. And then you do the whole drop and then you create that buzz.
That's cool as
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So, so that's how you have to go about it. But, you got to start building that up. You can't just call one day, hey, can I get an exclusive strain? Like, it'll take 3 months to, create the patch, carve it out into my grow and then start nurturing that. And, you can't just call it in. Like, you have to start building that up, and build those relationships with the cultivators. And cultivators want to do that. That's their chance to nerd out. That's like me calling you, like, yo, I got a project for us. And you're like, oh, there's some podcast. No, we're going to do something dope. Like, we're going to go here. And then you're like, oh, okay, this is going to be fun. Because now I'm getting paid, but you're also challenging me to use my skill to do something creative that, is out of the typical ordinary. You know what I mean? So, because you go to school, you learn all this stuff. You don't use 80% of the stuff that you know how to do. It's just
that all went away.
Yeah, it's like basic. But then you have someone coming to you. Now we're gonna pull out all the stops. We're gonna do all the flips and backflips and everything. For this one product. So. That's kind of like how the cultivators, they all grow big strains like the sours and wedding cakes and all the big names. But
wedding cake ain't bad.
Yeah, so they do all that because that's what the masses know and they like. But when I say, hey, let's do a small patch, I'm gonna buy the whole from you, but just do a small run, and we're gonna do a drop, and this drop will last for 3 weeks, and when it's sold out, it doesn't come back until the next harvest.
I feel like I took up a good amount of your time reminiscing and whatnot, and I there's so much more we can get into, but I've taken up way too much of your time. However, and this is the one thing I wanted to talk to you about this last week.
Okay.
Because 420's coming up, and Devin Haney's fighting.
Oh yes,
Ryan,
yeah,
on
Ryan Garcia.
Saturday. Who you got?
See, I know Devin Haney isn't going to knock him out. Right? We already know that, right? That's been established. So that's why I feel like Ryan has a chance, because it's just going to go to the points, right? The scorecard on output, who's putting out.
I don't know where he is mentally now, dude.
He said he got abducted by UFOs or something.
I don't know if that's just TikTok, Instagram bullshit, or if he's losing his shit.
I don't know. He went on some rant, on some QAnon rant that was just wild. So yeah, I don't know. Who knows nowadays? A lot of people, play up, to make it, to drum up interest. But it's possible. I mean, boxers take enough shots to the head that something easily snap.
He's young, but he ain't that young anymore.
Right. So I don't know. I am gonna watch the fight. I'm not doing anything for 420 other than visiting some parties that I got invited to. I'm hearing through the grapevine that there might be some potential enforcement activities at a lot of these big events. Nobody's getting locked up, but I think they're running up, shutting these parties down and just taking product away and just shutting it down, right? It's like shutting down a fucking house party, making too much noise, not supposed to be selling liquor, shutting down, here's a fine, we're taking all your Like, so that's what I'm hearing is gonna happen.
Not doing any promotions or anything?
Nah. You know, this what everybody's doing something. So I'm trying to outdo, the 500 parties that are taking place that are big. Like, I'm gonna be competing with trying to get people. I'm not gonna chase that. I'd rather do like a 421 party, to be honest. I'm that guy. I'm a fucking contrarian. I go against the grain. Like, if everybody wants to go right because they think it's great, I'm like, I want to go that way. Let's see, just to see something different, so.
And I think I that's kind of where I was always, like, in line with you, just like, we don't have to go that way.
Yeah.
Like, we can go this way, that way, or the other way, as long as we're all going to the one destination, which is getting paid.
Yeah.
We don't have to do that way. Yeah. Like, getting rid of all the gatekeepers and whatnot. It's like, I see everyone just being tired of the bullshit of like having to do things a conventional way.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing that gives me confidence in operating in cannabis, because it's so competitive, it's so cutthroat. There's so many brands. Everybody's kind of doing the same thing, where it's literally exactly the same way in the music industry times 5, right? Everyone's a rapper, everyone's an artist, everybody got a studio, everybody got some shit popping, everybody's a personality. Even back in the 2010s when PNC came out, like, of course there was other big media properties and companies, but at the end of the day, I always think I could come up with a new idea, something fresh and new that just comes to me, and I'm willing to just put it out there. So that's where my confidence comes in knowing that I was able to create something that people can go back and be like, yo, that we got that off. Like, we made something, might have not been very successful for me individually, but from a creative standpoint, I know people do give me the credit for creating the platform for other people to grow and actually put something out that people respected. Really, at the end of the day, it was just like, people respected it. Mm-hmm. I think that's what most of us do. Like, we play basketball not to make the league. We play basketball to just get the respect. Yeah. When you walk on the court. Like, you're not going to NBA, but like, he's busting people's asses out here. That's like, you want to guard him? Careful, he won't bust your ass. You might need, it's like, you just want to earn your respect. That's always the New York mentality. So I know I earned my respect in the radio, podcast, hip hop, area. Anyone that was around that time knew PNC. I know for a fact. You can't say you didn't know about PNC. So, and we put out. We had a lot of dope people come through. So that's kind of my approach with with the weed stuff, is like the authenticity, and then the ability to create original stories, things that you could connect with people on a real level that represents us and how we've experienced the culture and the way we know it, just growing up in the city and just like, this is what we do, so for me the brand and the lifestyle is easy because I'm basically just retelling the stories of me growing. I'm just everything that I put out is just a recreation of something that I've already experienced. So it's just like, it's almost like a reflection of my life. Yeah. In many different ways. You know what I mean? I'm like, I didn't really come up with this. I'm just repeating the story of my friends going to a club or going to a weed spot, or something just popped off in the midst of smoking a blunt, and that's kind of like the weed is just part of all the other stuff that just gets dropped in that is part of the experience, because we just all smoke weed. It's like it's just a given. It's not even a thing to highlight. It's like wearing a fresh pair of sneakers. It's like, what shoes you wearing tonight? I'm wearing my Jordans tonight, my 11s or whatever tonight, and I got the dope watch, and you got the weed too? Oh, I got some nice weed. Okay, it's just part of the whole. You got your chain, I got my nice chain, I got the other day, I got the shirt, and I'm bringing weed. I got some nice bud for my boy. And okay, so that's just how it kind of slots right in with everything that we do. So that's just kind of like how the brand is gonna move. So.
Special thanks to Alex Norman and Budega.NYC. You can find them on Instagram and at Budega.NYC. Also a special shout out to the Puff Puff Girls for their pastries, keeping me in the holiday spirits this past April. You can find them on Instagram. That's Puff Puff Girls with a Z. Until next time.